Yeah, I had been living in Ukraine for a couple years, and I came back to the States, back home. And for some reason, you ever notice like someone, you just start seeing something and now you see it everywhere? It's like when you hear someone say, suddenly you hear it everywhere. Well, I just noticed how huge everybody got. America, within about 20 years, just exploded. And it's visually apparent when you walk back. And that really just got under my craw. And you start asking yourself again, right? Thinking is just asking and answering questions. You start asking, how do we account for that? What is it? What is this symptomatic of? And it is symptomatic, in my view, of getting away from this idea of nature, right? You can look at the degree, in terms of the food side, there's been this false premise has been laid out for everybody. There's been, hey, you want to be healthy. There's produce, there's natural food, and then there's processed food. And they say, hey, you can get healthy if you just eat the right kinds of processed food. No, you can't. Nobody ever got healthy eating processed food. In the same way you don't feed a dog cheeseburgers, because that's not what they're meant to eat, right? I mean, there's no genius to it. It's if you think of everything as a spectrum, right? And on one end, you've got an orange. And on the other end, you got a Fanta. Where do you want it? Where does 80% of your food need to be? So that idea really got in my head, this difference between whole food and processed food. And I think the crutch of it is most people just have their 80-20 wrong. They're eating 80% junk and 20% good stuff. And if they just flip it around, they're eating 80% stuff a little closer to the orange, so many problems go away. And the interesting thing is not just personal health problems. You start thinking clearly. And then there's this cool collective benefit. If everybody just goes that way, you find out a lot of social problems start going away too. So it's the same thing when you think of this idea, the clean green future for all of us, right? Because we all share this kind of idea that, gosh, you got environmental problems, debt problems, healthcare problems. 60% of kids are obese, right? I mean, what do you do? Where do you start? It's you got to pick your angles, and for me, it seems like this nature versus processed makes the most sense. And food first. What can you control? Well, you can control what you put in your mouth now, and that idea. And so that's what kind of fired me up. And then when I looked at the world through that lens, a lot of actions became clear, because most food companies are working within the framework of the idea that processed food is somehow going to help you. And you just aren't eating the right processed food. And if you switch from this brand to that brand, well, suddenly you'll be okay. And then that's really building off the idea that because there's something wrong with you and you're trying to cling, because you're really confused with this idea that nature's working perfectly. You get in alignment with nature, you're like a monkey, like a tree, like a crocodile, right? They don't have obese. There's no problems. And the question I often ask people, because I get in these business meetings now, these kind of big corporate business guys, who kind of like to poo-poo this whole idea. They're like, oh yeah, processed food is bad, I know. And you ask the question, how many pounds overweight should an average 10-year-old be? Not any. Not any. Right? How many pounds overweight should an average 50-year-old be? Not any. 5 maybe, 10 maybe, 20 on the outside. But you go to the States, 200, 300, 100 pounds and they're 14 years old. That got me, that was something I cared enough about to have courage to go through all the scary stuff that you guys are going to have when you pursue whatever it is you're interested in. You've got to have something that you're so solid about that. And so I have such conviction that I'm not so smart, but I'm smart enough to know that nature is right.